Hi, my name's Cathy, and last week I watched my sister sneak into my boss's house with a USB in her hand, smiling like it was hers to open. She used my work, my trust, and my silence to erase me. HR called me unstable. My mother said, "That's just who she is, Cathy. Let it go." But the moment they replaced my name with hers, I started documenting everything. Want to know what she didn't expect? I was already behind the door. There's something about Harper Street that always made my chest tighten, even back in the days when it was just another route home. I hadn't driven through it in years, not since Lennox left for college. But that night, my hands turned the wheel on instinct. No GPS, no need for one. I guess some roads are etched into your bones. It was early spring. The trees still looked tired, the sky bruised and sagging low over Charlotte. The street lamps were just beginning to flicker on, casting that hazy orange glow that made everything feel stuck in a memory. My car rolled slowly down the street, and there it was, her car, parked not in front of anyone's home, but a block off, like it didn't want to be seen. Lennox's license plate had a dented frame from high school. I recognized it before I even realized I was holding my breath. My foot lifted off the gas. She didn't live here. She had no reason to be here. And yet, there she was. Deacon Morrell's porch light was on. I didn't stop the car, not immediately, but my hand hovered over the gear shift. Something cold sat on my spine. "This doesn't look like visiting," I said aloud, quietly, but not softly. My fingers were already pulling the keys from the ignition before my brain caught up. I stepped out into the street, the evening air wrapping around me. It didn't feel like spring. It felt like premonition. I'd grown up trailing behind Lennox, not out of fear, just rhythm. The second child walks where the first has stomped paths. Our parents never meant to pick favorites, but you don't need intention to create imbalance. I heard it all my life. Let Lennox try first, Cathy. She needs the confidence. She's sensitive, Cathy. Be the bigger sister. And I was bigger, quieter, a little smarter, if we're being honest. But that's not the currency that gets you picked. I told myself I didn't mind, that being behind the scenes gave me freedom, that I wasn't built for the spotlight anyway. I believed it until that night. Lennox moved like a whisper, slipping through the side gate of Deacon's house. She didn't knock, she didn't hesitate, she just walked in. And she was holding something in her hand, a USB drive, small, black, barely noticeable. But my eyes found it like it was lit in neon. I glanced at the dashboard clock, 6:47 p.m. Deacon had mentioned a networking dinner out of town. He shouldn't be here. No meetings were scheduled for tonight, no files to transfer, no emergencies. So why was my sister entering his house like she belonged there? I stayed frozen on the sidewalk. Somewhere deep in my chest, something broke loose. A question I didn't want the answer to. But I knew. She wasn't supposed to be there. That wasn't a casual drop-off. That wasn't family. That was something else. And my job, my work, Deacon was the only one with full access to my systems. I stepped back toward the car, heart pounding. I knew what I saw. But seeing it and admitting it weren't the same thing. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I sat behind the wheel with the engine off, watching the house like it might confess something. My palms were sweating. I wanted to storm in, yell her name, throw that USB into the street, and ask her what the hell she thought she was doing. But I didn't. I texted myself the address, logged the time, and memorized the curve of her shadow against the window. Then I sat still. 30 minutes passed. Maybe more. "She always takes," I whispered. "She walks through open doors like they were made for her." I wasn't going to let her take this one. Not this time. I didn't drive away. I waited and waited, because if she was doing what I thought she was doing, then she wouldn't see me coming. I didn't sleep that night, not a wink. I laid there, eyes fixed on the ceiling, as if I was waiting for it to cave in. By the time the sun broke through the blinds, I was already dressed. Coffee went cold on the counter. I never touched it. I got to the office before anyone else. I needed that silence, the kind that comes with knowing no one's watching yet. My keycard still worked. That fact alone gave me a false sense of normal. But the minute I walked in, I felt it. That shift. People nodded politely, but didn't meet my eyes. A few whispers stopped mid-sentence. Smiles seemed strained. I took my seat, opened my laptop, and logged in. Everything loaded like usual, until I opened the latest dashboard. The title had changed. Project Oversight, Lennox Darby. I stared at the screen, my hands frozen on the keyboard. That was my project. 18 months. I built it from the ground up. Late nights, skipped holidays, backup plans to the backup plans. And now it was hers, officially. My name was gone. Erased, not retired. I opened my inbox. Nothing from Deacon, nothing from operations. No explanation, no apology, no heads up. But tucked in between spam and team alerts, I saw an all-staff announcement. Product pitch highlights. Thank you to our presenters. Lennox's name was bolded. I clicked through the attached recording. There she was, standing in front of the team, polished and glowing, guiding them through slides I recognized. Every chart, every line of language, I knew it because I wrote it. Someone near me said quietly, "Didn't expect to see her leading it, but Deacon said it was strategic." Strategic. I remembered a conversation a few weeks ago. Deacon asked me to draft a transition-ready brief, just in case the system scaled beyond its current scope. I thought it was a what-if exercise, part of being forward-thinking. Turns out, it was part of phasing me out. They didn't just steal the project. They staged the exit, my exit. Before I could close the window, Lennox walked in. Her heels clicked like she owned the floor. Bright blouse, crisp slacks, like she was auditioning for Forbes. Everyone's attention shifted to her like gravity had been rewired. She laughed with one of the junior staffers, shook hands with someone from legal, and kept walking until she reached me. "Morning," she said, all sunshine and syrup. "Hope the transition wasn't too sudden for you. You're a builder, Cath. You don't need the spotlight." I didn't answer. But I remembered the mug, the one she gave me years ago. Some of us build so others can shine. Now I saw it for what it was, not a compliment, a positioning statement. She smiled again and walked off. People followed her like she was magnetic, and I sat there, jaw locked, knuckles white. "You gave her space, Cathy, and she took your name." I watched her settle into the corner office, not Deacon's, but one close to it. Temporary, maybe, but close enough. A few hours passed, emails trickled in, meetings came and went. I barely moved. Around 3, I glanced toward her desk and saw her plug something into her workstation, the USB, same one I saw in her hand the night before. She clicked through files, folders I knew, my labels, my structure, my legacy work. The knot in my stomach twisted harder. How much of me was she rebranding as hers? I pulled open my own archive, checked for backup versions, started noting timestamps. If she was going to use my work to climb, she'd do it while I documented every rung she stepped on. I didn't go to Deacon. I didn't storm Lennox's office. It was too soon. Anger without evidence is noise. Silence with proof. Now that's strategy. I took screenshots, saved copies, dated everything. I didn't know how deep it went until the company event revealed just how invisible I had become. It wasn't on my calendar. The assistant knocked, said it was a strategic realignment session, and left before I could ask what that meant. I grabbed a notebook and walked down the corridor, slow enough to think, fast enough to not look hesitant. When I stepped into the conference room, the seats were already taken. Deacon at the head, 2 board members flanking him, and Lennox sitting like she'd always belonged there. Her face lit up with that rehearsed smile, the kind you use when cameras might be watching. "Cathy," Deacon said, gesturing toward the only empty seat. "We wanted to catch you up on some exciting transitions." His voice was too pleasant, like someone selling a used car with a cracked engine. Lennox didn't speak. One of the board members nodded. "You've laid the groundwork beautifully. What we're doing now is building on your legacy. That word again, legacy. They used it like a farewell card before I even got the chance to leave. Deacon leaned forward. We want your brilliance to seed future systems, Cathy. You're a foundation builder. I nodded, slowly. My stomach was already flipping. I didn't say a word, just waited for the punchline. We'd like your support documenting processes so Lennox can get up to speed in the interim. There it was. I looked at my sister. She stared straight ahead, chin up, pretending not to feel my eyes on her. And just like that, I understood what was happening. Weeks earlier, Deacon had asked me to write a transition-ready document, said it was for when we expanded to new markets. I took it seriously, detailed every structure, every system check, user path, testing flow. I even labeled optional paths, future vision tracks. It was organized, easy to digest. Now, that very file had a new cover sheet, streamlining for strategic continuity. It was in Lennox's hands, distributed, quoted, branded. She read from it in that same conference room. Cathy laid the rails. I'm just helping the train move faster. Everyone laughed. Light chuckles, cordial faces. She said it like a compliment, but it felt like a funeral speech. The worst part? I saw my own phrasing in her mouth. My rhythm, my formatting. She hadn't rewritten it, just wrapped it in newer paper. I didn't just hand her the keys, I thought. I paved the road she drove over me with. Still, I said nothing. Because I'd learned, over time, that snapping in rooms like that only ever gave people something to point at. So I listened. I nodded where I had to, but I took note of every word, every nod, every silence. I watched who leaned into Lennox's voice. I saw who glanced down at their phones when I spoke. They're not just letting it happen, I thought. They're part of it. My father once told me, the loudest one in the room is often the weakest. But I kept wondering, what about the quiet ones who get ignored long enough? That afternoon, I walked back to my desk. I wasn't dragging my feet, but every step felt heavier. The office buzzed around me like I didn't exist. Lennox had taken over my corner meetings. People were already knocking on her glass wall, seeking answers I used to give. When I sat down, I saw her shadow before I saw her face. She leaned on the partition, holding that same smile. I hope you know this doesn't diminish you, she said. You're a legacy. I looked up, dead in the eye. Funny, I said. Legacy usually comes after someone's gone. She blinked once. Just once. Then smiled tighter. Draft due Friday, she added, setting a sticky note on the corner of my screen. I didn't touch it. Later that night, after I got home and fed Ellie, after she drifted off with her stuffed lion hugged tight, I sat in my dining chair and opened my laptop, but I didn't work on the draft. I opened a new folder, named it Operation Displacement. Then I started writing. Version logs, authorship history, timestamps, email headers, slide versions, footers. I wasn't backing up. I was building a record. They thought I was stepping aside. I was just stepping back. For now. I didn't want to go. I sat in my car for 5 full minutes before stepping into the hotel ballroom, the kind with fake gold trim on the columns and little spotlights over every linen-draped table. My name wasn't on the program. I knew that before arriving. Still, I walked in like I belonged there, because I had. The quarterly town hall wasn't just some Friday pizza party. It was an event I'd helped plan before Lennox ever got a company badge. I booked the venue, chose the AV contractor, picked the color palette for the branding on the slides they'd show on the projector. And yet, as I moved toward the back row, no one greeted me with more than a polite nod. The opening speech started just as I sat down. This quarter's success, Deacon said, voice strong and rehearsed, is due to fresh energy and bold vision, a reinvention from the inside out. Lennox stood near the front, wearing red like a fire alarm. They clapped. I sat there like furniture. The lights dimmed. A highlight reel began to play, B-roll of project teams laughing in hallways, quick flashes of wireframes I'd built, dashboards I'd mapped. But none of it had my name. Lennox's voice narrated the video. "These innovations reflect the collaborative spirit of our growing team," she said. "We've streamlined, we've elevated, we've defined a new standard." My fingers gripped the edge of the seat. A coworker beside me whispered, "Wasn't that your demo sequence?" I nodded once, said nothing. They didn't replace me. They wiped me. The reel ended with Lennox's name across the screen. Vision Architect. The room burst into applause. She stood, waved, nodded like a politician. I didn't clap. I didn't move. Later that night, there was an after-party dinner at the same hotel, a smaller room off the side of the ballroom. Candlelight, round tables, 2 glasses per place setting. I was seated between Ophelia, my mother, and Lennox. I don't know who arranged it, but it wasn't a coincidence. Lennox looked like the guest of honor. And maybe she was. When dessert was served, Ophelia lifted her glass. She didn't wait for silence. "To Lennox," she said, loud and proud, the kind of leadership we knew was in her all along. I looked at my plate. I didn't touch the pie. Someone clinked their fork against a glass, and everyone toasted. The wine burned going down. The server refilled my water, then leaned in. "You here as a guest of the team?" I didn't answer. Ophelia leaned toward me, her voice soft. "You always preferred working behind the scenes, Cath. That's your strength." "No, Mom. That was your comfort. My strength was surviving you and still showing up." I didn't say it aloud. I swallowed it like I'd swallowed everything else, until Lennox leaned over. "You should be proud, sis," she said quietly. "You helped me get here." I turned to her, looked straight into her eyes. "No, Lennox," I said. "I carried you. There's a difference." Silence. No one heard it but her. That was enough. Someone at the far end of the table stood to toast something else. Laughter broke the tension. But I knew what I'd done. I'd drawn a line. Not for them. For me. I left early. Back home, I sat at the table with my laptop. No wine, no music. Just the hum of my system and the steady rhythm of keys. I updated my documentation folder. Sorted everything. Names, timestamps, source files, version history, backup logs. Not for revenge. For clarity. For closure. For truth. I hadn't planned to sit there long. Just long enough to finish backing up the last round of export logs, maybe refill my coffee, and disappear before anyone started asking questions I wasn't in the mood to answer. The cafe corner by the south window had become my unofficial office, a neutral zone where I could see who was approaching, and more importantly, who was avoiding me. I didn't notice Gideon until he was already across from me. He didn't speak, just slid his phone across the table, screen lit, waiting. At first glance, it was just another email thread. Subject line, succession strategy. But as I read deeper, my face burned. Lennox had written, "Cathy's just not made for leadership. She likes building, not being seen." No misunderstanding, no sugarcoating. It was deliberate, a quiet rewrite of who I was. Gideon sat still, elbows on the table, his voice low when he finally spoke. "I'm not taking sides. But you deserve to know." I stared at the screen a second longer, then handed it back. "Thanks," I said, not because I was grateful, but because it was all I could say without breaking. Later that afternoon, back at my desk, I combed through old emails, months of messages I had filed away, thinking they were harmless. Phrases like streamline, make space, enhance visibility. At the time, they felt like jargon. Now, they read like a script, a roadmap. Lennox hadn't just landed in my chair by accident. They didn't plan my replacement. They planned my disappearance. The brief, The reshuffling, the public acknowledgement, all of it had rhythm, structure, timing. I didn't spiral. I didn't rage. I started a new folder on my hard drive, Operation Displacement, a name that felt both surgical and stupidly accurate. That night, I couldn't sleep, so I worked, not out of obligation, out of necessity, out of clarity. I traced back project timelines, draft versions, system logs. I created a timeline. Then I started adding names. Not to shame, just to track. People who said things, who signed off, who copied others. Midweek in the lunchroom, I heard two junior staffers at the far end of the table talking about Lennox. She brought so much clarity, one said. Before her, everything was kinda scattered. The second one nodded. It's wild how the system was so disorganized before she got here. I didn't say anything, just sat with my sandwich and listened. They weren't mocking me. They didn't know. They were repeating what they'd been shown, what they'd been allowed to see. They think she fixed what I built, I thought. They think she invented what she inherited. A mentor once told me, legacy is often credited to the last one to speak. Lennox spoke louder, sharper, publicly. I had spoken through structure, through results. Clearly that wasn't loud enough. So I didn't argue. I documented. Thursday morning, a message popped into my inbox. No sender. Just, your name is off the next quarter's leadership org chart. Attached, a screenshot of the chart. Lennox's name sat where mine had been. Mine was gone entirely. At the bottom of the message, you didn't hear it from me, but get your records in order. I stared at it for a long time, not because I was shocked, but because it finally clicked. What this had all been building toward. Not just a job, not just control, but erasure. I printed the entire email chain, highlighted key phrases, boxed in timelines. I stapled it, labeled it, and filed it into the front of the Operation Displacement folder. Then I sat back, and I didn't feel fear. I felt focus. That night, after Ellie went to bed, I returned to my desk and opened the folder again. In the margin of my documentation sheet, I added one final line. You didn't lose me. You misused me. I opened the company-wide memo before I even got to my desk. The subject line hit me in the chest. Staff realignment, Q2 update. I knew it before I clicked. The chart was clean, color-coded, professional. Lennox Darby, Head of Strategic Systems, bold font, full title. Cathy Ellis, Consulting Advisor, Transitional Oversight. A side note, a footnote, like someone who used to matter. My phone buzzed 3 times in under a minute. Did you know? This has to be a mistake, right? You need to talk to HR. I didn't respond. Didn't even blink. I grabbed my folder, Operation Displacement, and walked straight toward Deacon's office. But I didn't make it. HR intercepted me just before I knocked. Cathy, can we grab a few minutes in the conference room? Their smiles were tight, their voices overly polite, like a doctor about to deliver the kind of news that comes with a clipboard. We sat down. 2 of them, 1 of me. The first one started talking in a tone meant to sound gentle, but it came off like a script. There's been a concern raised regarding the handling of internal files. My heart didn't skip, it clenched. They pulled up a file folder that used to be under my permissions, now flagged for external access attempts. 2 instances, they said, from an unregistered USB. They called it potential mishandling. Of course, the second one added, we understand how things can happen during transitions. That word again, transitions. I looked at the file path on the screen. It was mine, but the device ID? Unfamiliar. And yet, I had seen it before. Lennox. That night. The black USB. I realized it in real time. She hadn't just used it to access my system. She used it to make it look like I had leaked something. My face didn't change, but inside I was shaking. So they didn't just want me gone. They wanted me dirty. When they finished, I asked for the access logs, timestamps, full metadata. We can't provide that right now. It's under internal audit, one said. I nodded once. I have my own logs, I said. Backed up, synced, duplicated off-site. The room went still. That's when Deacon walked in. Of course he did. He had that look like he wasn't expecting it to go this far, but also didn't want to backtrack. "Cathy," he said, palms half raised, "let's not escalate this." I looked at him, really looked. "You want it quiet, Deacon? Then stop lighting matches near my name." No one said anything. "I won't be your scapegoat," I added calmly. "You've underestimated the wrong woman." And then I stood. No chair scrape, no folder slam, just quiet steps across carpet. The hallway outside was full. No one spoke as I passed. They all knew, maybe not the details, but enough to feel the weight in the air. At home, I changed into jeans and a hoodie, made a cup of tea, sat at my dining table and opened the folder again. I added the leadership chart, printed the HR memo, noted the USB's serial number from the screen. Then I opened a blank document, title, Timeline of Targeted Removal and Image Manipulation. The content wasn't angry, it wasn't even personal. It was clean, factual, sharp. I attached the files. BCC. 3 days after the HR meeting, I was back in my apartment, sitting at the kitchen table, when the link popped into my inbox. No message, no subject line, just a company-generated press release. I clicked. There she was, Lennox Darby, center frame, smiling with that same softness she used to get extensions on term papers and free drinks at conferences. The headline read, "Revamping Internal Systems for Scalable Success." Halfway down, there it was. "My sister laid the groundwork," she said, "but I brought the vision." I didn't stop reading. She credited me in past tense, not as a teammate, but as a stepping stone, as if I were a legacy, expired. I sat back in my chair, air caught in my throat. Not rage, not even betrayal. Just the dull thud of recognition. She wasn't being generous. She was being strategic, framing herself as respectful while making it sound like I had aged out of relevance. I copied the article, saved it to the archive. Labeled it, Narrative Control, Phase 1. That Friday, a company-wide email hit inboxes. Team Strategy Presentation, Friday, 2:00 p.m. Presenter, Lennox Darby. I opened the attachment and scrolled. The outline was mine. Color scheme, slide order, even the damn joke in the footer was mine. If you're not testing, you're guessing. I hadn't shared that with anyone but my team 6 months ago. I opened my drive, searched the original file. There it was, metadata still stamped with my user ID. I sent a copy to myself, added a note, original author, created by C. Ellis. She hadn't even edited it, just swapped the name on the title slide. She didn't even rewrite it, I whispered to myself. She just replaced the cover. Later that day, as I finished updating file logs, my Slack pinged. "Gideon, thought you'd want to know. They've updated the org chart again." I clicked the link. There was no delay this time. My name wasn't buried. It was gone. Under Leadership, Strategic Systems, it read, Lennox Darby. Under Consultants, Cathy Ellis. Legacy Advisor, External. No photo, no bio, no description, just a clean professional erasure. I typed back, "Got it. Thank you for not pretending." I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. Instead, I went to the little cafe on 7th Street, the one with slow Wi-Fi and no real food, just pastries that all taste like almond and regret. I opened my laptop, set my phone on silent, and began organizing. 3 folders: credit theft, misrepresentation, retaliation. I added the article, the presentation, the org chart. I didn't plan to publish any of it yet. I wanted one more thing, one more contradiction. If they were going to bury me, I wanted them to finish the whole, so when I stood up, I wouldn't just be proving something. I'd be correcting it. I pulled out a flash drive from my purse, formatted, clean, ready, just one. I closed the laptop, took a sip of my bitter coffee, and prepared to leave. That's when the message came in. Slack again. Not Gideon this time. "Hey, I used to work with Roscoe. He told me you might need some backup." I stared at the name, someone I didn't recognize, but they knew Roscoe, and I hadn't spoken to him since the fall restructuring. A man who said very little, but noticed everything. The message ended with, "Meet me." I have something you need to see. I didn't know what he had, but I knew it could change everything. Roscoe didn't say much when he sat down, just nodded like always, like none of this surprised him. We were on a bench at Elmwood Park. Wind cut through the branches above us, but he didn't flinch. He reached into his coat pocket and handed me a flash drive. Simple. No label. Found it in the break room trash a few weeks back. Figured it wasn't mine, he said. Didn't delete anything. Figured you'd know what to do with it. I nodded. No words yet, just a weight in my hands heavier than plastic should be. Back home, I plugged it in. My breath caught halfway through my chest before the folder even finished loading. There it was, footage, uncut, time-stamped, 3 days before the leadership change, my presentation, my voice, my files, and buried inside a draft folder, an email Lennox never sent. Should we give her partial credit or keep it clean? Sent to Deacon, never replied, just saved. The audio file played automatically when I opened the third folder. Deacon's voice. She won't fight it. She never does. I sat still, watching the progress bar slide across the screen like a countdown to something I hadn't prepared for, but had already lived. I shut the laptop. They mistook my silence for surrender, I said aloud. It was always strategy. Later that evening, Ellie and I drove to my mother's house for dinner. Sunday night tradition, which somehow always left me with indigestion and a migraine. Lennox was already there when we arrived, smiling like she had something new to unveil. Ophelia served baked chicken and sweet tea, acting as if nothing in the world had shifted, like her youngest daughter hadn't been chewed up by the very machine her eldest now ran. Halfway through the meal, Ophelia stood with her glass. To Lennox, she said, for keeping the family name strong. Ellie blinked up from her plate. Mom, didn't you help Aunt Lennox get her job? The table went still. Lennox froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. I smiled, not wide, not smug, just honest. Yes, I said, but now I think I helped more than I knew. Ophelia frowned. Cathy, you've always been better behind the scenes. That's your strength. I set my napkin down gently. No, Mom. That was your comfort. Not my strength. The room quieted. Again. After dinner, Lennox avoided eye contact. She helped clean dishes, told Ellie she'd call her next week. I nodded as she left the kitchen, but I didn't speak again. The next morning, I woke up to a notification pinging on my phone. Lennox had posted a new TikTok. A montage of office clips, her standing at the whiteboard, her typing furiously, her speaking at a podium. The music was dramatic, motivational. Her caption, I was born to lead. Some people are better at building silently. And her voice over the footage, not everyone can handle success with grace. The comments section was less kind. Didn't her sister do that project? Wow, this reeks of look at me energy. She's not the main character she thinks she is. I didn't reply. I didn't comment. I just hit save. By midday, I was back at my kitchen table. I opened my evidence folder and created a new one. Final phase. Printed out the metadata logs, my timeline drafts, the email thread, the internal Slack conversations, and now, this TikTok. No anger. No theatrics. I wasn't looking to destroy her, just to clarify who had been telling the truth all along. I prepped my talking points, not to confront, but to correct. I wanted it on record, not whispered in halls or leaked in chat threads. I wanted it in the room. The projector clicked on. I didn't look at Lennox. I looked at the room. Deacon sat at the far end of the table, arms folded, expression unreadable. The COO leaned back, lips pursed. HR was there, tight-lipped and ready to note every breath. Lennox sat to my right. Too stiff, too still. Slide 1, timestamps. Slide 2, version history. Slide 3, a video file from Roscoe's recovered drive. My voice came first, presenting the original pitch, time stamped, dated, then the audio clip, Deacon's voice, clear as daylight. She won't fight it, she never does. Lennox reached for her phone. The COO raised her hand. Let her finish. Next slide, the unsent email draft. Lennox to Deacon. Should we give her partial credit or keep it clean? I didn't flinch, didn't blink. Deacon finally spoke, tone flatter than usual. We'll have to review this carefully. I looked straight at him. I've done enough reviews. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to reclaim what's mine. After that, I closed the laptop. I didn't need applause. I didn't need gasps. I needed silence. And I got it. HR and legal stayed behind after the meeting ended. I walked out before the cleanup began. By Monday morning, Lennox was suspended. The company issued a statement. Predictable, bland. We regret recent oversights regarding intellectual attribution. It circled fast. A few LinkedIn posts hinted at it, then more. The truth always finds its way. People messaged me, a handful of texts, 1 or 2 voicemails, but I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, because I didn't need to. That kind of stillness, that's where real resolution lives. Tuesday afternoon, Gideon stopped by my desk. You didn't just win, he said. You changed how some of us see the system. I nodded. A junior analyst caught me by the elevator later. I didn't think someone could fight this and survive. I didn't fight to survive, I told her. I fought to stop disappearing. HR called me into one last meeting. They offered me a leadership position. New title, bigger salary. I declined. I want a clean consultancy exit, I said, and a written record of what I authored. No fanfare, just facts. They agreed. I packed my desk 2 days later. No send-off, no cupcakes, exactly how I wanted it. That night, at home, I pulled the old mug from the shelf, the one Lennox gave me back when all of this still felt like teamwork. Some of us build so others can shine. I turned it in my hands once, then placed it in the donation box. Let someone else shine with it, I said. I build for myself now. Sunday afternoon, Ellie and I walked to the park. She picked the bench, I bought the ice cream. We sat in silence for a while, legs swinging. Then she asked, Mom, are you still mad at Aunt Lennox? I looked at her face, curious, not judging. I'm not mad, I said. But I won't let her write my story anymore. Ellie licked her spoon.